Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Goodison Park, my home. As you can see, it's a royal visit. I'm here with Joe Royle, an Everton legend, and two accounts, really, a legendary player. He started off, he was Everton's youngest ever player at the time. By the time he left Everton, he'd scored more goals for the club than anybody since Dixie Dean. Then, of course, he returned as manager, saved the club from relegation, their only top half finish in the first decade of the Premier League, and, of course, 30 years on, he remains the last Everton manager to win a major piece of silverware with that 1995 FA Cup victory over Manchester United. First of all, thank you, Joe, for welcoming us to your beautiful home here, and glad to have you on.
You're welcome, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, if we start at the very beginning, you've just been telling me there, your love affair from Everton started at a young age. Your father was a musician, but it was actually somebody else who introduced you to Everton from a young age.
Well, a musician who slept on a Saturday, after the late nights on a Friday. But my friends over the road in Parkhurst Road, Norris Green, the Stewarts, my friend Dave Stewart, Paul Stewart, and their father, Tommy Stewart, was the tugboat captain and a rabid Evertonian. And he used to take me to the games, because his sons weren't bothered, So
okay.
He used to take me, and then they used to stand me under the clock and just under the bar at the stage. So nobody complained.
Yeah.
But sooner or later they started complaining.
Yeah. But I guess you have an early introduction to Goodison Park for you then. What was the ground like back then? What were your memories of attending matches from that early age?
Well, early on, I also went to Ranworth Square Primary, which was just down the road, the 58.
Yeah.
And but the headmaster there, Mr. Dave Mackay, used to send me up every other week because he was getting free tickets for the school. Okay. And he used to put me on a bus, and then I was meeting people that I had no right to meet.
Okay. Yeah, I believe you were a talented all-round sportsman at this early stage, though. There was quite a few things that you excelled at, not just football.
Well, I don't want to be immodest here, but I was swimming for Liverpool as well. Mm-hmm. I was a high jump champion, in the athletic side, and the studies weren't going too bad anyway. So that was the main thing.
Yeah. And you actually had a choice when it came to which way you were going to go with the sport. I know Everton were looking at you. Was it also Manchester United as well? A few clubs, weren't there?
Well, there was, but I played. I mean, first of all, there was a lot of to and froing had to be done to get me to play for Liverpool boys, because it's always been the home of the secondary modern boys. So I was quite young and fresh in that, but. Once that I knew that Everton were interested, it happened after one game. I think we'd played Wigan boys, and after the game, the scouts from Wigan boys called in at the house, and also not Wigan boys, Man United boys.
Okay,
and then of course Everton called in, and from then onwards, I think it was assumed that I was going to be going to Everton.
Okay. And when that big moment came for your debut, because obviously at the time you were only still 16 years of age, I believe that Harry Catterick actually summoned you to his office, and he actually had was it your father on the phone, or he spoke to your dad?
He had my father on the phone. He said, "I got your father on the phone here." And yes, boss, normally if you got summoned to Harry's office, you were going to get a rollicking or something. He was a very stern man. And he said, I've got your father on the phone and just telling him you're making your debut tomorrow at Blackpool.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I was downstairs, polishing the boots for the Blackpool trip. So I had to find my own then and put that there. And, of course, the next day we played at Blackpool, and there was a little ginger-haired fella running all over the show that ran the game.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that Harry saw him and thought, God, I'm going to have him, which was Alan Ball, of course.
Yeah. Was it a nervous moment for you at that young age? Obviously, you were taking the place of Alex Young, and he was such a fan's favourite with the Evertonians.
Yeah, it was nervous, and there were one or two complaints outside afterwards. But Jimmy Gabriel, who was a lovely man, as well as a hard person. My God, you wouldn't like to play against Jimmy Gabriel, and he was very supportive of me, and he said, "Go on, son, you're doing okay, and all that." So, it was a hard time, but it had to be done, So, I didn't play regularly till the end of the season, but I started regularly the following season. So, it was a good debut.
Yeah. What were those older characters like in that Everton side at the time? Obviously, you took Alex's place that day, but he's a very different kind of centre forward to yourself. But what kind of characters do you remember at that time in the Everton dressing room?
Some great characters. Roy Vernon, was certainly one of the quickest, players I've ever seen. He was a pre-Ian Rush, played on his shoulder, was running in behind. And a terrific striker of the ball, and there were some tough players. Alex Scott, a Scottish winger who would look after himself as well, and my great friend Derek Temple,
of course,
who I still see, regularly. And what a volleyer of the ball he was. So I was 16 and learning from these excellent pros.
Yeah. And then once you just established yourself in that side, there was that run to the 1968 FA Cup final, and you were big favourites against West Bromwich Albion, but disappointing, obviously, in the end, the way that one went.
It was. We'd played West Brom in the league twice, and beaten them, and realistically, I don't think we thought, well, this is going to be easy, but. We probably froze on the day. It's a young side. Yeah. It was a young side. Jimmy Husband, John Hurst, myself, all our players on the younger side. And we just didn't really click on the day. Yeah. And we lost. Yeah.
I mean, you've mentioned him already, Alan Ball. It's now been retrospectively dubbed the Holy Trinity behind Alan Ball, Howard Kendall, Colin, Harvey. Explain with the different attributes what they actually brought to the side as individuals.
Well, for a start, they were three very fit lads, who could all get about. They could all handle the ball. Probably a little bit of difference of pace. Jimmy Husband would be seen as the quickest. Colin Harvey would be seen probably as the fittest, the all-rounder. And Howard was the very talented. He could play centre half. He could play centre. He could play in midfield. So they all had different attributes, and they were all top players.
Yeah. Is there any particular matches around that era stick out for you? I think there was a couple of ones maybe against Leicester City and Wolves at Goodison that you really did well in matches like that.
Well, I was scoring quite freely at the time. So I couldn't. Well, I scored 4, I think, against Southampton. Yeah, but that was regular. Yeah, I like playing against Southampton.
Yeah, was that the 8-0 game? Was it
8-0 game?
Yeah, wow.
So, you've done your homework. You've seen all the games, but no, it was a great time. I loved it. Yeah. I love playing. We've lost Borley, we've lost John Hurst, we've lost Jimmy Husband. Yeah, and one or two others that. So it's got to be very sad in the later years,
Yeah. Before we go on to that 1970 title winning team, I mean, a lot of people think was it 68, 69 possibly was actually possibly playing more attractive football for Everton.
I've heard that before. Yeah. But it depends what you call attractive football. Yeah. That side played winning football.
Yeah, yeah. That's ultimately the benchmark. It's incredible. Must have been, for somebody like yourself who'd grown up, in the city, to be part of an Everton title winning side, 69-70. And I believe because of the World Cup, it was a busy start, a truncated season, but you got off to a flyer by all accounts.
Well, I was still an apprentice at that time, and we were clearing the dressing rooms for all these foreign sides coming in and going out.
Yeah.
And boy, did they make a mess.
Yeah.
You know, they must have thought, well, we're not clearing it. So
Yeah.
So we were doing that. But, you know, we then had the pleasure of staying there and watching the games.
Yeah.
So we saw all the games at Everton.
Yeah.
And that was great.
Yeah. And then I remember, that in 1970 when you clinched the title, was that also West Bromwich Albion, and a great moment, was it 1st of April to clinch the league title with Everton?
That's it. We did our run around the ground,
Yeah.
you know, on a night, and we hadn't played particularly well, but we'd won.
Yeah.
And that was all important.
Yeah. Must have been a lovely feeling for yourself to be in the Goodison crowd, you know, a Liverpool lad like yourself, and to have that reception from the supporters.
Well, it was, you know, and I'd come through Liverpool boys, you know, where I'd done okay, started as a wing half, then ended up in midfield or centre forward, and it was a great time, honestly. Mick Channon, who I played with at City later on, had an expression, "It's a feeling you can't scratch."
Yeah, quite. What was playing under Harry Catterick like, though, as you said already, he was a real taskmaster, and you really had to have your wits about you, really.
Not really. If you didn't try to mess him around, or anything, he didn't. You know, he knew people. You know, but there were one or two thought they could be a little bit smarter than the average bear. You know, and they tended to be the older players. And I think that they were probably feeling the wrath of Harry.
Yeah.
Rather than his young boys.
Yeah. Did he look after you in that respect? I suppose he wouldn't be perhaps the modern arm round the shoulder manager, but the fact he brought you through.
He could be that, you know, honestly, he could be that. You'll find also, you know, the likes of Colin, Harvey, Howard Kendall, who are the younger ones in the squad at the time. They'll tell you the same thing. Harry was great.
Yeah. And see the season after you'd won the title, the run in the European Cup, and see Borussia Mönchengladbach. It was the first ever penalty shootout. They'd never had that. It's the
first ever penalty miss as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it still must have been a great occasion for you to get through. I mean, people hadn't had that drama before, had they?
It was amazing for a young Scouse lad from Norris Green.
Yeah,
you know, playing in the European Cup, and playing against, you know, a top team. They were Mönchengladbach. They were, I mean, we should have beaten them, but nevertheless, they were a top side. Yeah. So you're dead right, you know, feeling you can't scratch.
Yeah. And having beaten Gladbach, I mean, a lot of people would probably have fancied Everton for the trophy, but it was that 1 week, wasn't it, the Panathinaikos game, and then obviously the Liverpool semi-final, desperately disappointing to go out of both competitions.
The team probably died would be a little bit extreme, but it certainly went on the slide after that, you know. Yeah. And it was also the week my first son was born.
Right.
So I came back from Greece and went straight to the hospital. So.
Yeah, so an up and down week to say the least for you.
Yeah, I know, the first member of the royal family.
Yeah, quite. And what did you think that after that it got difficult for Harry because he was trying to perhaps bring in new players and sort of transition the team, and it didn't quite go out?
I think Harry was having health problems as well. Coming back on the plane, he took ill. Yeah, and he went straight to hospital afterwards. I know they kept it quiet. He was a very, very private man, Harry Catterick, and but you know now he's not here, and he went straight to hospital.
Yeah. I think I remember reading in your book, actually, when you had this Liverpool FA Cup semi-final, and Shanks was there to greet you at the ground, and he was asking where Harry was.
He knew where Harry was. He knew where Harry was, but he also, Shanks, he was a great football person.
Yeah.
You know, that you can't dislike Bill Shankly.
Right.
So we were going into the ground, for this big semi-final game.
Yeah.
And where's Harry? Didn't you know that, Bill? He's in hospital. Jesus Christ, he said. They'd have to put a window in my coffin rather than miss this. And that was his actual words, he's ever the clown, but he was good.
The gamesmanship. But I mean, after that, you carried on. You start to get some back problems, wasn't it? And it really sort of hindered your progress at that time.
It did. It was getting to the stage when I was going straight from a game on Saturday into a private hospital.
Yeah.
Where they were putting me on traction and trying to find out the source of it, but. In the end, it ended up at surgery, and then surgery meant Christmas in hospital. So it was, if I'm honest with myself, I was never quite the same again, but I did get back to a level whereby at least I played for England again.
Yeah, of course. And then for a time, you actually had the partnership with Bob Latchford, the two of you playing together, and you felt at the time you actually dovetailed quite well.
Yeah, that I thought it did okay, or better than okay. Mm-hmm. Bob was a terrific striker. Bob was, a goal machine. Built like a buffalo. He was strong as an ox.
Yeah,
and he was a good striker, Bob. But I think that Billy Bingham wanted me out, really. He wanted a different kind of second striker. Mm-hmm. And so he got his way. I went to Manchester City.
Yeah. As somebody who come through the ranks as an Evertonian, was that a difficult decision, or did you know it was time to go?
Oh, when it's time to go, but there's no point in me hanging around and playing reserve football, because I'm an Evertonian.
Yeah.
I had a family to support. A young family to support, a young baby boy, and quite honestly, I knew I had to go.
Yeah, and as you said, obviously moving on to Manchester City, and then there was Norwich City as well, Bristol City. But did you always think that you would become a manager or not? How did you feel about that?
It started at Norwich. The John Bond was an excellent coach, and Mel Machin, his number 2. Was an excellent coach also, and the coaching side at Norwich was outstanding. Mm-hmm. And I started doing little bits there with him, even taking me to the beach, to work, to get fit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was watching every moment as to if I want a life in football, I've got to watch these guys.
Yeah. So how did the move to Oldham Athletic come out? Because you're still a relatively young man as well at the time.
It was, but I'd retired. I'd come out, I think I was 32 at the time. And I saw there was advertised, in the local paper down there, and friends let me know, what do you think? So I was actually abroad, with a few of the other Oldham players at the time, but never thinking for 1 minute I'd be the manager there.
Okay.
But they said, why don't you have a go?
Yeah.
So we did. And the rest, as I say, is history.
Well, I was going to say, what was it? The 12 years at Boundary Park. What you mean? What a journey it was, and quite a few First Division clubs were given a bloody nose, including Everton, in a free game FA Cup thriller.
There was. I mean, we were a good side. We got a good side together. Young players, a young, very, very fit side. And we beat Liverpool, we beat Man United, we beat Everton.
Yeah,
over the period of time. But in the end, it came that it was going nowhere. And I was thinking more as a manager than a coaching job then.
Yeah, and in terms of like you say with the Oldham Athletic job, they're even. England got in touch with the FA. I mean, it could have been the England manager you were considered as well.
I was asked would I be interested.
Yeah,
and things were going so well at Oldham. I said, listen, I've got people out there who've been waiting, many, many years to see some success of this club. And I said I ain't going to let them down. So I stayed.
Yeah,
You know, I stayed. I probably, if I was ultra ambitious at the time, I probably should have gone.
Yeah. But I mean, it was. I think nobody fancied going there. You obviously had the plastic pitch. You much as usually dub it ice station zebra with the conditions.
Yeah. Well, nobody liked it because it was also cold.
Yeah.
You know, cold. Oldham is just under the Pennines.
Yes.
And you know, in the winter it gets cold. Believe me, I've still got 2 sons. You know, living in the village there. So. Oldham is a lovely town, and you know, I wouldn't have anything bad said about it.
Yeah, but then obviously at the end of 1994, I mean, there'd been talks about Everton before 1990, before Howard came back. A lot of people thought you might come back then, but then Peter Johnson gave you the call, and to be fair, Everton were in dire straits at the time, weren't they?
We were bottom of the table with 8 points from, I think, 14 games.
Yeah,
you know, which was relegation, you know, so but I was ready for the change, and it was actually Cliff Finch who came to see me. You know, he was given the job of, I suppose Peter Johnson was going to be tapping me up, as they say.
Yeah.
So I spoke with Cliff about the job, and I got it, and we couldn't have had a better start. Game 1, Liverpool.
I mean, I think you mentioned it in your book, saying it's your most memorable match at Goodison Park. Like you say, Everton were bottom of the table, but 2-0. And it was emphatic, and of course, it was Duncan Ferguson's first goal for the club.
Big Dunk, you know, big Dunk, who we found out later on that had been breathalyzed the night before. Yeah. You know, and, you know, we had words about it then again, but I've got to say, equally, I never had a moment's problem with the big fella. And what a player.
Yeah.
You know, everybody talked about how big he was and how strong in the air he was, and he was. He was also very, very quick with a good knowledge of football.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you've initially been brought on loan to the club by Mike Walker, but do you feel that under yourself as a former centre forward and an Evertonian yourself, you were able to understand what made him tick, as it were?
Oh, yeah. Listen, he was a great guy. You know, he's a very friendly guy. I mean, I bump into him now and again, and he's got the biggest grin you've ever seen. He's lovely.
Yeah. And did you remember that night in preparing the team for the Derby match? Because obviously they come in, you were bottom of the table, but you and Willie Donaghy, you got like an instant reply out the players because they were a good set of lads, as they proved.
They were good players, you know. They were good players. Barry Horn, you know what a player. He was an international, of course, as well. You know, and the goalkeeper, of course, you know, the big fella.
Yeah.
Big Neville, you know, he was an international keeper.
Yeah.
Dave Watson, I'd played with Dave Watson at Norwich.
Of course, yeah.
You know, I knew Waggy, you know, so it wasn't as if I was going into a strange, cold place that I didn't know.
Yeah. In terms of, I mean, I suppose you've got a bittersweet sort of recollection of this, but Dogs of War, you said that from the start. I mean, is it part of you, I wouldn't say regret, but what are your feelings on that? Do you think it labelled you?
I said that with a smile on my face, a Dogs of War attitude. Not thinking for one moment that, you know, within a week's time they were making T-shirts with Dogs of War on them. So, no, I mean, it stuck, and it was used against me, you know, by certain members of the press at a later time, you know, which was rather naughty, but then that's it. But, you know, I was still proud to be the man who took, you know, Everton to Wembley, but the game against Spurs at Leeds was still one of the best performances I've seen from an Everton side. Yeah. And I say that with no bias at all. You know, we were terrific that day. Yeah.
I mean, incredible memories, like you say. Ellen Road, I think the way it was done, they had all the Spurs fans in the one big stand, and Evertonians of free size, and you were just on it from the start as a team.
From the first minute, we were up and at them. And, of course, Daniel came on, you know.
Best substitution you never made.
Never made.
Yeah.
I just said, get warmed up, Daniel. And he thought I meant, you're on.
Yeah. I mean, it seems incredible now looking back then that was able to happen, but it was just in the confusion of the moment, I guess.
And the noise. I mean, the noise that the semi-final was making. Yeah. You know, and I'd just gone down and said, get warmed up, yeah. And by the time I turned my back, he substituted himself, which I've got to say is nice because shows you how keen he was to get on.
Yeah.
And he was a lovely boy.
Yeah. I mean, you've spoken about that in terms of the way you're playing. You had that bite with the Dogs of War, if we're going to call them that, but also that was in great performance on the front foot that day. You tore Tottenham apart.
We did. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a one-day wonder. It wasn't Tottenham were awful on the day. We were terrific.
Yeah, and I think you let everybody know that it wasn't the dream final that the London press and that
I did. You heard about that, didn't you?
Yeah. I think everyone knows what you said there. But incredible moment, given where the team were when you took over, then you got yourself safe in the Premier League. In fact, as we speak today, I mentioned this to Joe already, it's the 30th anniversary today as we speak of the Manchester United League game at Goodison. Again, Big Duncan grabbing the winning goal. I mean, that was maybe perhaps one of the moments where people thinking, this is a different Everton side now.
Yeah. And I think the attitude is being applied at the moment, although, David Moyes has come in and he's had a terrific start. Yeah. I feel sorry for Sean, who I don't think did an awful lot wrong. Mm-hmm. I think some of the players let him down. But nevertheless, David Moyes has come in and whoosh, have taken off.
Yeah, quite. There's actually echoes, like you say, of what you did back then. But then when it came to the final itself, your friend there, Sir Alex Ferguson, they just missed out on the title. But I guess they'd have been big favourites against yourself, but again, I think the confidence amongst the Evertonians and an incredible result and a really resolute performance on the day.
Terrific on the day. Big Neville made a few good saves. We had to defend a little bit longer at the end, but overall, again, they were outstanding, and they raised it. And I tell you what, they could celebrate as well.
Yeah, apart from Nev himself, who got off. But I mean, the goal, incredible play. I mean, Anders Limper, I think you've been on record saying that you think he's one of the most talented players you ever worked with.
Probably the most.
Yeah,
an amazing talent, lovely fella again. And I came in first day, and I said, I was speaking to all the players when I came in, and I said to Anders, I said, well, you tell me what's not been happening for you, you know? He said, well, I don't play.
Yeah.
I said, well, you're going to be playing now. You're in the team.
Yeah.
And he looked at me as if I'd come from another planet.
Really?
And he was great.
Yeah.
And he still turns up at Everton dues and that,
Of course, yeah. We've had him on air. He was a big Evertonian, yeah.
Oh, in the Wilmslow. He likes the Wilmslow for the meeting place.
And the goal itself, obviously, Anders had that mazy run, and then probably Graham Stewart should have scored. But Paul Rideout, it was a tough header for him to take.
Underestimated Paul Rideout.
Yeah.
We know he could handle the ball. He wasn't slow. He was strong in the air, and he was a very strong player in the reincarnation of the team, if you like. He was a good player, Paul Rideout.
Yeah, and if I remember right, David Unsworth, particularly good game that day, keeping the great Mark Hughes out of that match.
Unsy, strong as an ox.
Yeah.
You wouldn't like to run into him, I'll tell you.
No.
Still keep in touch with him now. He's been a bit unfortunate in his coaching experiences, but he'll come again.
Yeah. And do you remember the scenes after coming back to the city after that? You delivered a trophy for the Evertonians and the incredible scenes on the streets of Liverpool welcoming you back.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was spine-tingling, honestly. Those of us who could tingle because the lads had been out the night before.
Okay.
So there wasn't so many on the top of the bus that could tingle.
But I mean, as much as it filled you with pride, and you've still got that, you've always got that. I mean, as an Evertonian, you wouldn't be thinking 30 years on as we speak now, that would be the last success. That must hurt you that nobody's replicated that success.
I mean, I'm sorry that Howard's not here, to state a case, but it just hasn't happened.
Yeah,
it just another clubs, our neighbours, who. I'm very friendly with a good number of them, but nevertheless, our neighbours are going away from it at the moment, aren't they? They're looking like it's won.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of the following season, you're looking to build upon that. And then you managed to get Andrei Konchelskis through the door eventually. I mean, that was a tough one for you, but he brought a real sort of extra dimension to the side.
Awesome. I just had a little tip from an agent that's, Alex and Andre weren't getting on that well, so go on then. If you can.
Yeah.
And Andre was terrific. To say that he came into his side, which wasn't full of confidence of the side, and he still scored great goals. I mean, he scored a goal at Anfield.
Yeah.
Which made him very popular.
Yeah. I mean, that day, his first 2 goals for Everton. And that was another thing that you had, in the derby. You seem to have the Indian sign over Liverpool.
Yeah. I used to love it,
Yeah.
I mean, they're good friends. I'd been out there playing against Ron Yates, which wasn't a nice experience, but nevertheless, we were good friends off the pitch.
Yeah. I mean, yourself and Roy Evans as managers at the time, I think it was probably the first time they had 2 Scousers in charge at either side of the park.
We'd both played for Lancashire Boys together as well.
Yeah.
And I still see Roy. He's only about 5 miles up the road now. He's still a good mate of mine.
Yeah, but it was an incredible season because you built on that FA Cup success. I've said already, I was the only time in the first decade of the Premier League that Everton actually finished in the top half. Finished 6th. It could have been a place in Europe, but just missed out. I think they'd taken one away from the English clubs at the time. But nevertheless, I mean, what a turnaround, and it was another really sort of impressive season for you to build on what you'd done in that first year.
It was, and you're right. They'd taken one of the places away from an English club in Europe.
Yeah,
and that was us.
Yeah. So it was also difficulties off the pitch. You mentioned already the big man Duncan. I think you had to go and visit him in Barlinnie prison, and that must have been. I think it was tough. You said to see him in there in that environment.
It was tough, but I felt that he needed all the support he could get.
Yeah.
So myself and a couple of directors went up there, and just said to him, "Hey, we're waiting for you,
Yeah.
We're waiting for you. Don't worry about it. We're there."
Yeah.
And he shouldn't have been put away. I mean, it was a ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, he came out and he was hungry when he came out.
Yeah. And we mentioned already in terms of the evolution of the side, and one moment I guess would be tough for you because we've been speaking to Jan before, and there was a day that she was poorly and you had to take her to the hospital, and that was the day Nigel Martin was coming in to supposedly to sign for Everton, and then he ended up going to Leeds United, and you couldn't do anything about that. But that must have been sort of a pivotal moment for you in terms of a disappointment.
Well, it was, I mean, big Nigel was Neville, sorry, not Nigel. Big Neville was, on the way down a little bit. He was losing a little bit, and Nigel Martin would have been outstanding for us. And he'd promised me he was coming.
Yeah.
And I can only think that Leeds gave him a bonus for coming to them,
Yeah.
He was coming. I'd met him and talked to him, and
yeah,
but it never happened.
Yeah, one day he did get through the door. Gary Speed, and he was another boyhood Evertonian, and it was a great start to that season. Obviously, it finished poorly, disappointing fashion for you, but the way you got off that season, like Sir Gary and the 7-1 against Southampton, you were looking good at that point.
We were, and there's no... Well, we did have a run of injuries, and the squad probably wasn't quite big enough to handle that, but we had a run of injuries at the time. No excuses, we should have done better.
Yeah. I mean, does it still perplex you the way that everything finished with Everton that season? You went in for the meeting with Peter Johnson, and I think you said you're still not too sure to this day really why it panned out the way it did.
I would repeat that.
Yeah.
I went to see him. We got on great. he's a really nice fella. I thought he was a good chairman as well. You know, I couldn't understand what it was, but he said I've been talking with one or two of the other board, and you know, we know the press feeling at the time. The press, for whatever reason, had jumped on my back. Mm-hmm. Sorry about your paper, your paper especially.
Yeah,
and quite honestly, it just fizzled away.
Yeah, obviously you went on to enjoy more managerial success at Manchester City. You were at Ipswich Town as well, but again, as an Evertonian, as a son of the city, a real sort of head scratcher for you the way it ended in that manner.
It did. Yeah. I couldn't understand it, you know, and I was getting the occasional letter saying, you know, what's happening?
Yeah.
You know, what's happening? And I went back to the ground, having met Peter Johnson and understanding what he's saying, you know, we'd like you to leave, you know.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. And I think at the time, you had Torre Andre Flo lined up, and I think Barry Horn was going to come back, and then it all fell through.
Yeah, and listen, I've met Peter since, and we were still good friends. I used to meet him in Mallorca, of all places, you know, and a pair of us sat there scratching our heads. And his number 2, Cliff Finch, he was a big supporter of us, you know.
Yeah.
But it was daft. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know how we came to that, but we did.
Yeah.
And off it went, and off I went.
Yeah. But fortunately, that's not the end of the story, because, of course, you came back with David Unsworth, that one game there at the end of the season after Roberto Martinez had left. And I guess that must have been a lovely moment for you to have one more game in the dugout as Everton manager.
It was a big smile.
Yeah.
It was a big smile, believe me. And Unzi is a great coach, actually. You know, it just hasn't quite happened for him for some reason or other on the other side, you know. But he's still young enough to he's a tank as a player.
Yeah.
You know, he was terrific, talented boy, and another nice guy. You know, he always had a smile on his face.
Yeah.
So I hope it does. I hope it works out for Unzi.
Yeah. And in terms of, obviously, you had a lovely reception that day from the Goodison crowd, and you were back at the game on Saturday. What is it for the wider footballing world that makes Goodison Park so special?
It's something you could only understand if you're there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I still go to games there, you know, and I'm still looked after, as I might say, by Everton as a club. You know, they look after me very well, you know, but I don't know. It's just something you can't really put your finger on. It is a very, very friendly club, you know, a very, very friendly club, and a very welcoming club. Sometimes too welcoming, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of your own legacy, I was there at Finch Farm in the autumn, that lovely day when you got to unveil your sign.
I didn't actually quite know what was happening there until it happened. Yeah. You know, when they got me there, and I couldn't. I don't know what I can say. You know, I mean, to have a road, albeit a road into a football ground, named after you is. Although I have got a cul-de-sac in Oldham as well. Okay, yeah, you're doing well. A couple of places there, as you said. Obviously, the feel-good factor is back around the club at the moment. David Moyes, you said there's echoes of yourself, and when you came in, he's a good man, and most of all, he understands Everton as well. He is a good man, and Everton can only get better at the moment. Yeah. You know, in other words, it's not going to go worse. Yeah. You know, which was a worry for a while. Yeah. But no, Moisey knows his stuff, and he's a good guy. Yeah. And it's meaning that we can all hopefully enjoy these last days at Goodison Park without being concerned looking over our shoulder, as it were. And I'm still a little bit annoyed about the Manchester United result. Yeah. You know, which that result shouldn't. A penalty's a penalty. Yeah. You know, it doesn't matter where it is on the pitch.
Yeah.
If it's a foul, it's a penalty.
Yeah, quite.
I still, what's happened? I heard all the excuses on Sky.
Yeah.
Why?
Quite. And see that finally, the new stadium, we're talking about how, in a way, it might be difficult to replicate the atmosphere of Goodison Park, but it's still the same people. It's just going to be the same fans in there. So hopefully they can do that.
I've met one or two of the new owners, who are certainly Americanized people, and they're very nice. They want the best, for the town and for the city. So let's wait and see. We could do with a little booster at the moment. Just a new face.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, your own thoughts? Are you looking forward to making the move there to the Mersey waterfront? Are you excited about that?
As I say, I was going to go, and I got flooded out. So I will be there very soon.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Joe Royle.
Thank you, Chris.